Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to say good morning and welcome you to day two. With day two, we are talking about the employee hiring process. And so I wanted to thank you for joining me today. As you know, today we are discussing how to create your winning team. So we want to discuss creating your hiring process and making sure that you're bringing people onto your organization that will add and not take away from your organization. So again, I did mention it yesterday, but I want to mention it to people that are just joining today or that will happen to come across the video. I have created two checklists for you guys. I love a good checklist. I know some of you are in the throes of opening businesses. And so, organization is definitely key. So you want to make sure that you're organized. So I've created two checklists because I know a lot of that know me from the non-medical home care agency. And then some of you are just creating new businesses. So I wanted to make sure that I created a tool that can help you regardless of where you stand. So that information will be provided in the description of the video. So let's get started with today's content. The first tip that I have for you guys, and I've organized these to where I'm always giving you 3 tips. I may be doing a bonus tip today because it may lead into tomorrow's topic. But the first tip that I have today is to identify gaps in your business. So if you have already launched your business and you've already been in the business for some time, then you're probably starting to notice gaps that are springing up in your business. But then also, sometimes before you launch, there may be areas where you know you have an opportunity or you already know you're going to have somebody else take care of a certain task or function within your organization. I'll use myself as an example. Compliance it's an area where I'm strong. I'm not going to say I'm not strong in that area. And so compliance are, making sure you have the correct documents, making sure you have the right licenses, because whatever, authority is over the industry you're in, chances are you're going to participate in an audit. So for me, I can't wait to task that to somebody else. That's just how I am. It's always how I've been. Now, I can do it, and I currently do it for my organization, but it is definitely something that I don't mind tasking to someone else. If you have not launched your business, then of course you want to come up with an operation structure. And so that structure is in your mind before you start. What are the key roles that you need to fill in order to make sure that your organization runs? So there's typically someone that is your tier 1, or those are the people that do that task that keeps your business going. So for instance, if you have a hair salon, that tier 1 are going to be your hairstylists, because there is no business if you're not having anyone actually doing the hair for the organization you're running. For our logistics company, that tier 1 employee are our drivers. We can't get packages out if there's no one delivering them. So you have to identify for your business who your tier 1 employee is. If you have a home care agency, that home health aide is going to be your tier 1 employee. So typically you have your tier 1. There's typically someone who is managing the operation. So there's typically a supervisor or a manager. And as you get bigger, you're going to want to make sure that your human resources, you have someone managing your finances and someone managing your human resources. Now, guys, for those of us who are small, a lot of times it's you doing all of those items. And that's okay. I think for most of us, that's how that is. Just you want to keep in mind, as soon as you're able, what are you going to task out and what specifically is that person doing? Okay, so that's the first step, is identifying those gaps in your business. Thank you, Bernadette, for confirming that. I appreciate that. So that's the first step, identifying gaps in your business. The second tip that I have for you guys is to begin the process of attracting the talent that you need. So if you haven't already, and I just kind of started talking about this, you want to begin creating job descriptions. Okay, it's very important for those of us who start off small and we've done every function within the business. That actually is a strength, because there isn't anything that happens there isn't any activities that happen in your business that you don't know how to take care of yourself. So with that being said, you know what it takes in order to get that job done. And so you want to attract someone that can, at the very least, do better than you, right? Because sometimes, you may be pulled in a different direction, and you want to make sure that employee that you hired is able to keep things going, right? That they can elevate the position. Make it better than it was when you had it, because that's the goal here. You want to be at some point able to step away from the business so that you can focus on vision, so you can focus on expanding, so things of that nature. So you really need someone that can come in, learn quickly, and take it to the next level. So that job description is really highlighting, okay? Because remember, when you're doing a posting or when you get to post your job, you're not putting everything out there, right? But you're putting those key elements. What are the requirements that are needed for this job? What do they need to be able to do? What should they come to you already prepared to have? So there are some items that you're going to be able to train. Like, for instance, some of the people that come into our organization, we've noticed they haven't necessarily had the strongest Microsoft Office skills. A lot of them haven't used Excel before. A lot of them haven't used Word document. Okay, that's something we can train, because at the end of the day, they have other skill sets that are definitely a value add to our organization. So you may want to train that. Now, when you get to someone who's in human resources, you may want to have that person come in and already have that experience. And speaking of human resources, if you're going to come in and run the human resources for my organization, you would have had to have years of experience, because that's something you really can't play with, right? So it just depends on what you need. But you want to be clear about what those needs are and make sure that your job description is able to adequately portray what exactly you need, okay? Once you get your job descriptions created, this is now where you're going to build awareness. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put your job or post your job, let people know that you have openings. So you're putting them on job boards. So these are your Indeeds, these are your career builders, Career Builder, Indeed, Monster.coms, those types of places. Now, I will say this, I just had this conversation yesterday. Most of the job boards out here do have where, you can post a job for free. Okay. Or a lot of times they have trials. Hey, post your job with us for 2 weeks. And after that, then it costs a certain amount. Typically, those free trials, they do work, right? If your job is being posted, you're going to get some attraction. There's a second option where your job is sponsored. Okay, so that's more where it's paid. And so with that, then the promise there is that you get more candidates. So I always tell people you want to have a budget in mind, because if you have an immediate need and you're only being presented with 6 or 7 candidates, you don't want to feel like you need to pick out of those 6 or 7 candidates. You really want to have a healthy stream of candidates so you can make that right decision. And so I always do sponsor. And again, I do sponsor with my budget in mind. Okay. But in addition to job boards, you want to express or build awareness with the social media platforms that you have. And so, like, for instance, right now I am looking for a personal assistant. As soon as I posted that job on the job boards that I'm talking to you guys about, I put it on my LinkedIn. I put it on my YouTube channel. Hey, I'm looking for someone. And I got pretty good responses. And so I like to have my feelers out in more than one area. Again, to make sure that I'm attracting talent in different ways, but that also it gets my candidate pool that much bigger. So I have a bigger pool to choose from. I think that's all I want to say there. I do want to say on your job boards, what I do like, and I don't know that all of them do this, but Indeed does this, which what are some questions or what are some items that for sure this candidate has to have? And it doesn't prevent them from applying, right? Because anyone can express interest in a position. But what it does do is it delivers your candidates to you in a way to say, Let's say that you're saying that your person needs to have 2 years of experience and they need to be well versed in Microsoft. I'm just going to say those two things. You realize that your posting has yielded 400 candidates. Are you adding those requirements in the job posting? What it'll do is say, hey, you do have 400 job candidates, but only 200 of them meets both requirements that you have. So you can either dismiss those other 200, or you can start prioritizing who you're going to reach out to first based on the fact that you know only half of your group meet both expectations. Okay, so that's what I like about that. I like knowing what I have in front of me before I start digging in. Because sometimes you do have time to look over 400 candidates and sometimes you don't. So you want to start with the people that most likely resemble what you're looking forward to, okay? What you're looking for your position. The third tip is a meaty one. It's you have to create your hiring process. And it's so funny because I think, when we think of jobs and promoting jobs and having positions that are open, we don't really think that there's a process that happens behind the scenes to that. So whenever you hear of creating systems, creating processes, your hiring process is a system. It is a process. And so you want to make sure that you have a way to onboard people. You have a way to screen people. You have an actual application that they fill out. These are things that we don't think of, but they need to occur in order to make sure that you're vetting out the right people. So we're talking here about creating that process. What does that look like? So I kind of mentioned one thing is, do you want to have an application? Do you not? I like the application because it is one place, it's one document that holds a lot of information about your applicant. So, their general information, their experience. And I will say this, because there are two schools of thought on this, but I will say this. Sometimes it is a good mechanism to weed people out, because if a person doesn't want to take the time to fill out a 2-page document, sometimes that may lend to you understanding, how much effort that person is going to put in for you. Now, it's not the only indicator, but it can be a big one, right? So, you don't have, this is your organization. So you craft it the way that you want, but definitely having an application in process. I broke this down in 2 sections. So let's start with pre-job offer. How many interviews will the candidate go through? Do you want to have a one and done? Is this person going to go through a panel interview? So do you have several people that need to speak to this candidate before you make that hiring decision? Are you the person making the hiring decision? Have you tasked that over to HR? So see, these are things that you need to put into your process. I will tell you for my personal assistant, it's just me. I'm making that decision. I'm holding 3 interviews with that one person. When it comes to our drivers, our drivers have one interview. They are screened first, and then they come in and have a interview with our lead dispatcher and operations manager. So it really depends on how your roles are structured, so that to detail how many interviews that you need to have. Okay. We talked about who is conducting the interview. What questions will you ask? And guys, this is important. And this is why I always say, I know when we start off, typically it's one person that's doing everything, which is great. But as soon as you can, if you're making an investment, you should have someone in your human resources department that knows what they're doing, that knows the HR laws, because these laws change quite often. And you don't want to be in a position where you're asking questions that are not legal to ask. Asking someone about, you just want to make sure that you're not offending anyone, that someone can't not get a job from you and say, hey, I really feel that person discriminated against me. Or I really feel that I didn't get the position because of my age. Or I didn't get that because they weren't able to accommodate my religion. So these are things that you're dealt with. And these are things that you have to be informed about if you're becoming, if this is your business, because people are going to point back to that business, sometimes not even necessarily know that they're pointing back to you. You want to make sure you know what are those questions you can and can't ask. Are there different ways of wording questions? Because while you can't ask a person, hey, do you have a car? Can you get to my job every day? You might not be able to ask them that, but you can certainly ask them, hey, are you comfortable with driving to Ontario? It says here on your resume that you live in Los Angeles. Now, see, you can ask someone that without making them feel bad about taking a bus to get to work. There's a difference there. Okay, so you want to make sure that you understand what questions you can and can't ask. And then also, what questions will help you lead to, is this person qualified for your position? Right? So, not only are they qualified, but are they a good fit? So, those are two different things. Are they a good fit for your organization? Okay. The second piece of this, creating your hiring process, is post offer. So, will the person be required to have a background check? Are you going to require them to take part in a drug screen? Right? Are there special considerations for your business that need to be weighed here? So, for instance, for our drivers, we do have them do a background check, but we also have to have a driving check done for them. Is there something specific that your position requires in order to be hired? So these are the types of things that you need to process out, that you need to step through to make sure that you're covering every process. And again, it might be, a good idea too, because most people, when they're interviewing with you, they're excited and they want to know, when am I going to find out if I'm getting this job? So this may be a process that you can highlight for those candidates to let them know, hey, in general, this hiring process takes about 1 to 2 weeks. Something that you can let them know to keep them engaged. Okay. So that is the third tip. Now, I will tell you, I think I am going to do this bonus tip. The bonus tip here is you want to make sure that you have a strong onboarding process, because remember, this position is mutual between yourself and now your employee. And so you want to make sure that even though you're excited that you've extended the offer to them, you want them to be equally as excited that they are now working for your company. So how do you bring them into the organization? And unlike how, one of the people that watch my channel, I liked how they put it. How do you promote loyalty? Because you definitely don't want to put all of this into a person for them to quit a week later, right? Or for you to realize, I don't think I made the right decision. So definitely you want to make sure your onboarding process is strong. And that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, is how do you build a beautiful culture that really represents who you are as a company, and how do you promote that loyalty, especially with home care agencies. It's harder and harder to not only recruit home health aides, but to actually keep them as a part of your organization so that they're not running to the next best thing. So that could be equally, that could be hard for a lot of us out here. It's just that competition. How do you get people to stay within your company? Okay, I am going to check in the chat real quick to see if I have any questions, because guys, I am again over this, my 10 minutes. I'm not really getting in there. Hello, welcome. I do see a couple of you jumped on. Thank you so much for joining. So guys, that's all I have today for today's video. Again, I do appreciate you for stopping in. Tomorrow, we will be talking about building that culture, or what does that onboarding process look like so you can keep your employees engaged into your organization, so that you can create people that can quickly adapt and really start performing well for you, because that's really what this is all about. Do not forget, guys, I am going to post this video later, so I will make sure those 2 free resources that I talked about, those checklists, that you guys are able to download them. Okay, you guys, that's all I have. Have a wonderful day and absolutely stay blessed.